All right, today we're going to break down one of the most powerful tools in cloud computing, AWS Lambda. And we're going to do it by thinking of it as your own personal on-demand automation robot. So think about it for a second. Imagine you need to do something simple, but you need to do it a lot. Like resize every single image a user uploads, or encrypt a sensitive file the instant it arrives. Now, normally, that means you'd have to spin up a server, keep it patched, keep it running 24/7, and pay for it, even when it's doing absolutely nothing. But what if you didn't have to do any of that? Well, that's exactly where AWS Lambda comes in. It's what we call a serverless service. Now, that word, serverless, it's a little misleading. Of course there are servers. It just means you don't have to worry about them. You just hand Lambda a piece of code, and it builds a tiny specialized robot just to run that code whenever it's needed. And here's the kicker. Once the job's done, the robot vanishes. You only pay for the split second it was actually working. So let's really lean into this idea of an automation robot. Seriously. It's the perfect way to get your head around what Lambda is, and more importantly, how it completely changes the game for building things in the cloud.
The basic deal with Lambda is just so simple, it's beautiful. Your one and only job is to write the code for the task you want to get done. That's it. AWS takes care of everything else, the servers, the scaling, the patching, the whole shebang. You just focus on the what, and let AWS handle all of the how.
So what are these little on-demand robots actually good for? What kind of jobs do people hire them for? Well, it turns out they are incredibly useful for a ton of different things. Let's check out some of the most common ones. We can pretty much group all the most popular jobs for Lambda into three big categories: reacting to files, working with databases, and running stuff on a schedule. First up, file processing. This is a total classic. A user uploads their new profile picture. Bam, a Lambda robot can wake up instantly, create 3 different thumbnail sizes, and just pop them where they need to go. Or, like we're going to see in a bit, it can grab a PDF, encrypt it, and tuck it away securely, all in the blink of an eye. Next up, database integration. This is huge. Let's say a new user signs up, right? That new entry hits your database, and boom, a Lambda function can trigger. It could fire off a welcome email, or add them to a marketing list, or maybe just check that their data is valid. It makes your whole system super responsive. And finally, we have scheduled tasks. Now, if you've ever used a cron job on a traditional server, which is basically just a fancy timer for running code, this is going to feel super familiar. You can just tell a Lambda robot, hey, wake up every single night at 3 a.m. and clean out old records from the database. It is perfect for maintenance, generating reports, anything that needs to happen on a regular beat. Okay, theory is great and all, but let's make this real. We're going to walk through an actual example right from the AWS Developer Guide, building a system that automatically encrypts a PDF file the second it gets uploaded. So here's the mission, plain and simple. We want a system where someone can just drop a PDF into a cloud folder, and a few moments later, a fully encrypted version of that same file just appears in another, super secure folder. No buttons, no scripts to run, just magic. And this is the whole workflow. This is the magic right here. First, someone uploads a PDF to an S3 bucket, which is really just a fancy name for a folder. That upload event is the trigger. It's like a doorbell that instantly wakes up our Lambda robot. The robot then runs our Python code, which does the encryption. And finally, it saves that newly encrypted file to a completely separate, secure destination bucket. It's simple, it's clean, and it's 100% automated. To actually build this, we only need a few parts. We need our 2 S3 buckets, right? The source and the destination. We need our Python Lambda function, that's the brains of the operation. And this is really important, we need something called an IAM role. Just think of it like a keycard. We give this keycard to our robot, and it gives it just enough permission to read from the source bucket and write to the destination bucket. That's it. It can't do anything else. So security is baked right in from the start. And hey, don't let the word code freak you out. Yeah, there's some logic in there to handle the actual encryption, but the core of what's happening is super simple. That S3 client thing you see on screen, that just comes from an AWS library for Python. The code is basically just a set of instructions for our robot. Hey, download the file that just showed up, do your encryption thing, and then upload the new version over there. That's really all it is. Okay, so we know the goal and we know the parts we need, but how do we actually, build this thing in AWS? Well, you've got 2 main ways to go about it. You can go the manual route, clicking your way through the AWS website, what we call the console. And honestly, this is a fantastic way to learn because you touch and see every single piece yourself. Or you can go the automated route with a tool like AWS SAM. That stands for Serverless Application Model. And with this, you just define everything in a single file. It's way faster, way more reliable, and it's how the pros do it. And this right here shows you why automation is so popular. I mean, look at this list. To do it manually, you've got to go through all these steps in order. Make the 2 buckets, create the security role, zip up your code, create the Lambda function, and then remember to hook up the trigger. It works for sure, but man, that is a lot of clicking. But with AWS SAM, you get to skip all of that. You just describe everything you need, the buckets, the function, that security role, the trigger, all in one text file. We call this infrastructure as code. Then you run one single command, and SAM builds the entire system for you perfectly every single time. It's a total game changer. So by now, you should have a really good feel for what Lambda is all about. The big question is, where do you go from here? How do you get your hands dirty and actually start building something? Well, the good news is AWS gives you some awesome resources. There's a site called Serverless Land, which is packed with pre-built patterns you can use. The official Lambda GitHub page has complete applications you can just deploy, like the very PDF encryptor we just talked about. And if you just need a little snippet of code for one specific thing, the AWS SDK code examples have got you covered. So if there's one thing to take away, it's this. AWS Lambda isn't just another tool. It's a totally different way of thinking about getting work done. It lets you build these powerful, super efficient systems that only cost you money when they're actually running, which really just leaves one last question for you to think about. What tedious, repetitive, annoying task in your world is just waiting for its own on-demand robot?